House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, in a members-only call with the House Democratic Caucus today, reportedly told her members, quote, the public isn't there on impeachment. But some members are having a different experience at town halls in their districts. Freshman Congresswoman Lauren Underwood represents a district that Donald Trump won in 2016. She flipped her Illinois district red to blue in 2018. Congresswoman Underwood came out for impeachment this week. Here she is telling Lawrence why.
So I felt the need yesterday to make this announcement at the town hall meeting in response to a question from a constituent, right? People throughout the communities all across our country are watching what's happening. It's painful, it's deeply disappointing, deeply disturbing. And so we want the facts. And that's what these investigations are hoping to achieve.
And here is Congresswoman Underwood at a town hall yesterday, again, in a district where Donald Trump got 49% to Hillary Clinton's 45%.
You came out this week in favor of an impeachment inquiry of the current occupant of the White House.
Let me start by saying this. No one, no person is above the law. And that includes the President of the United States. And
NBC News correspondent Leigh Caldwell was at that town hall yesterday and several others in the Midwest and in Pennsylvania. She joins us now to talk about what she's been seeing and hearing about impeachment from voters and what those voters have been telling their members of Congress. Hi, Leigh.
Hey, Ali. So good to see you.
What have you been hearing out there?
Yeah, so what we've been hearing, I just want to start when we chose the town halls that we decided to go to this week, one north of Pittsburgh, two in the suburbs of Chicago. And we chose these town halls because they were in suburban districts. A lot of these voters broke with Republicans in the 2018 election, and polls are showing that they're doing the same right now. And we chose these town halls also because the three members had not come out in support of impeachment. Well, here we are in Illinois, and as we're here, two of those members, Brad Schneider and Lauren Underwood, came out for impeachment when we were here, and so we, of course, attended their town halls. And the Lauren Underwood town hall was extremely interesting because it was a town hall for seniors. It was in a senior community. There was no one under the age of 65 there. And we expected the audience questions to be about health care, prescription drugs, pensions, things that seniors really care about. But question after question was about impeachment. And the audience was extremely engaged on this issue. The first time she was asked about it, there was huge applause, as you showed in your opening. And there was a lot of applause at her reaction, too. And talking to these voters after this town hall, they were extremely thrilled that Lauren Underwood decided to come out in support of this impeachment inquiry.
However, one of the members of Congress you went to listen to, Connor Lamb, didn't do that. Let's just play what happened in his town hall on Tuesday in Pennsylvania when he was asked about impeachment.
What I'm asking you is whether you will join with your 127 colleagues in the House of Representatives and support an impeachment inquiry, one that is already going on. It's happening. And you're lagging behind it. And I'd like to know why.
I do not believe so far that your statements about calling it an impeachment inquiry allows you to go farther. I don't share your opinion about that.
What's going on there?
Yeah, so it was super interesting because that woman was not the only person who asked Connor Lamb about impeachment. He got multiple questions. And as you heard, the audience applauded at the woman's answer, and they did not applaud at Connor Lamb's response when he said that he didn't support it at this point. So Connor Lamb is also in a tough district. He is one of the most vulnerable Democrats facing re-election in 2020. He's in the suburbs. He barely won his special election in 2018. He more handily won the November election in 2018 that was just a few months later. But he's having to navigate these difficult waters of a district that spreads from very conservative voters all the way to the most liberal. But he's also taking a different tact than Lauren Underwood, who we just saw, who was in a very similar district, who is also vulnerable in 2020, and she decided to come out and support it. So these members are having to make these personal decisions on how they move forward on this issue, taking into consideration their voters, of course.
They are personal decisions because they will affect them in the next election. If they come out for impeachment, then they've got to count on all those supporters who wanted them to do that to double down and make sure that they get reelected, or the other side's going to come out. Very interesting.
Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on the button below for more from The Last Word and the rest of MSNBC.